Greetings, gamers. I'm Ben Ross.
I'm Shukabao.
And I'm Skeletroy.
And we're back for part 2 of our special season finale of Very Good Music,
a VGM podcast.
All right, everyone, welcome back, and now it is time to get down to business. Except for 4 tracks that you'll be hearing today, everything that we're going to be featuring is a Maverick theme from Mega Man X or Mega Man X3. We played in with the classic Dr. Light theme, almost more of a Dr. Light jingle, and then the Dr. Cain's Lab theme from Mega Man X3, also a pretty cool sound. And we'll be closing up with some of the ending music, the credits music and whatnot. But everything in between is one of those great Mega Man songs that we have come to know and love. The Robot Master or Maverick Showdown music. Although, it doesn't actually play when you fight the Mavericks. It just plays when you're going through their stage. Kind of like I said with Dr. Doppler last week, I like to imagine these loudspeakers up and like the whole time you're going through, Mega Man's hearing these songs, so. Troy, not even just thinking about the music, if you had to narrow it down, nostalgia-wise, who would you say is your favorite Maverick from the Mega Man X1?
Well, like visual, it would be Storm Eagle. There's just something about his wings and how he moves that always impressed me as a kid. Like, I mean, I know some of the Mavericks are bigger, you know, like Flame Mammoth or Spark Mandrill or whatever, but I just found that Storm Eagle was kind of captivating. What about yourself?
Yeah, I think if I had to pick my favorite Maverick just in general, it would probably have to be Storm Eagle. It's my favorite theme, I think, from X1. Favorite look as far as the Mavericks go. He just looks super cool. And the fight was also pretty memorable for me. I really liked that. All the Mavericks really in X and X2, I think, but especially in X, are just really fun fights. They're very well put together, very well done. Even if some of them, like, I'm thinking of Flame Mammoth and Spark Mandrill. If you have their, you know, the thing that kills them, then it makes them a little bit of a pushover. It's still a lot of fun.
For sure.
Shukapal, do you know why they're called Mavericks in the X series?
Well, in the normal Mega Man games, they're all called Man, or in the case of Splash Woman in
Mega Man 9, yeah.
Yeah, in Mega Man 9. They're all called Man, or, yeah. But in the X games, they're all, like, named after different animals.
Yep. Doesn't really have anything to do with why they're called Mavericks, though. But yeah, you are right.
Know where that is.
Yeah, you are right. In the X games, they are, the X games, that's a throwback that you don't understand. In the X games, they are all based on animals, which I thought was pretty cool. So, do you know what the term going Maverick means?
No.
Han Solo is a Maverick, sort of, in Star Wars. It's that character that's got the independent streak that, like, goes off on its own and does its own thing. In this case, it's because Okay, so the robots, like X or Zero, in the Mega Man X timeline, they're called Reploids, which stands for something I can't remember, something android. And the Mavericks, kind of like the Robot Masters in X, were usually created for certain, you know, with certain jobs in mind. I think Storm Eagle is actually he's like one of the Maverick hunters early on in the X story, what little of it there is. I'm actually remembering the Mega Man X, like, that short anime that came out on one of the PlayStation.
The Day of Sigma.
The Day of Sigma.
So good.
So good. If anybody has not seen the Day of Sigma, oh, it's great. Storm Eagle is really cool in the Day of Sigma. But a Maverick is a Reploid that goes rogue and, like, starts causing trouble, basically gets up to criminal activity. And Sigma was the leader of the Maverick Hunters. Like, he was X's boss, like their police chief. But then he went Maverick, and it's this virus that I think was actually either it was created by Sigma or it was created by Dr. Wily way back when, and it infected Sigma, something like that. Anyway, it starts to infect the other Mavericks and Reploids, and that's why they go Maverick. Troy, do you remember anything at all that could maybe correct or enlighten anything I've said?
Okay, so Dr. Wily created the virus. It began with Zero, and he infected Sigma. And then Sigma started making, like, other Reploids turn Maverick. And I don't remember how it goes because, like, in X4 or X5, I think, it turns out that, like, Zero also has, like, the robot DNA to cure the virus. It's more complicated than it needs to be for a Mega Man game.
And I know, like a lot of Pokemon games nowadays.
So, like, Wily created Zero. Do you remember why Zero didn't, like, why Wily never actually, like, released him?
No.
I don't either. That would be interesting to look up, but
I don't know, it almost seems like he was trying to create, like, a better Proto-Man, but I don't know what happened there.
Well, and X was created by Dr. Light and revived by Dr. Cain, like 100 years or so after the original Mega Man series. And then Doppler, where he comes in, he's kind of like Dr. Cain, he's a Reploid scientist. So Dr. Cain invented the Reploids, the ones that eventually went Maverick. Dr. Doppler is also a Reploid scientist, and he supposedly came up with some technology that prevents Reploids from going Maverick. But then eventually that goes south as well, because, again, in the end of Sigma. But that's kind of all behind the scenes. Like Troy said, it gets a little convoluted. It's more complicated than a Mega Man game really needs to be. But the music is just fantastic. And Troy, do you want to talk a little bit about how we settled on the track list for this part 2?
Yeah, it's kind of funny just looking at the track list that we've got lined up here. It's basically my order of boss themes from least favorite to most, and then I think Bedroth just kind of found an analog for each one. Is that how it came about, or are these like your favorite or least favorite to favorite as well?
So basically, yes. And I kind of like the way you have it set up because it is so hard to rank these in like absolute favorite to least favorite. There's not really a bad Maverick theme in either of these games. There are definitely some that are better than others, but all of them are what, Shukabao?
Very good music.
But you had it set up in tiers. So you brought X1 music, like we talked about last time, and I brought X3 music. So you gave me basically your tier list for X1. There's one song in tier 3, which is good but not great. 3 songs in tier 2, which is pretty good. And 4 songs in tier 1, which is very good. And then you did do your best to like rank them in order of your personal preference. But I do think, even objectively speaking, I think that these all fit in the tier that you put them in. I am a little partial to one of the songs in your tier 2, and a little less partial to one of your tier 1 songs than you are, so I might have flipped those and maybe moved things around a little, but otherwise I can't complain. But then yes, basically, like you were saying before we really started recording, I know the Mega Man X1 Maverick themes like the back of my hand, and so I went through and listened to the X3 Maverick themes and tried to think, okay, I couldn't really come up with a tier list the same way that you could, or the same way that we could for X1, but I tried to think of the song that, what song could this most be compared to, musically speaking, from the X1 soundtrack? And it did kind of turn out, I do think that the 4 best X3 songs ended up against your top 4 Mega Man X1 songs. The bottom 4 I probably could have put in almost any order, and one of them has some of my favorite parts of any of the Maverick themes, but the song itself is a little bit underwhelming to me when you put it all together. I'm teasing a lot of stuff we're going to be talking about that hopefully will make more sense later, but Yeah, that's my long-winded answer as to how I went about it.
Well, I guess with that, we should just get right into the first one.
I think that is a good idea. So, what was your only Tier 3 song from Mega Man 1?
I went with Sting Chameleon.
All right. And yeah, after a lot of deliberation and a lot of listening, I decided to counter that one with what I alluded to last week, and everybody will hear it in the song now that I mentioned it, Tunnel Rhino. Mega Man X1, that was Sting Chameleon, and Mega Man X3, that was Tunnel Rhino. As we mentioned last week, all of Mega Man X3's tracks were composed by Kinuyo Yamashita. The Maverick themes are actually split up quite a bit between the Mega Man X composers. Sting Chameleon was composed by Setsuo Yamamoto, who composed the majority of the X1 soundtrack. Even though these are, our least favorite, still starting pretty strong. That Sting Chameleon track, honestly, is kind of a banger.
Well, yeah, when I was listening to it just now, I was just like, geez, why did I put this one as my least favorite? But I mean, that's the thing, when you put things into order, something has to be at the bottom.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's the only reason.
Yep.
Tunnel Rhino, on the other hand, a little underwhelming. I felt like it didn't take me anywhere, you know?
That's a really nice way to put it. I think it works solidly for what it is. I could see this as the musical version of, a Rhino. Just kind of a big, tough, plodding, but ultimately just kind of a slow, gray track. It doesn't go a lot of places. It's big and bulky and kind of intimidating, but yeah, the Sting Chameleon track, there's a lot of movement, a lot of rocket energy there. Shukapai, what do you think?
Well, I kind of like the Tunnel Rhino theme better.
Yeah? That's cool. Why do you think so?
It just feels like a more sinister, big, powerful track, a Rhino.
Well, and you mentioned last time that you like those, the intimidating sort of boss fight themes.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely two very different themes. I think that they fit the animal that the Maverick is supposed to be. What do you think? Yeah. Yep.
For sure.
He's nodding his head.
Because, especially now, now that we've put Tunnel Rhino more in context, I guess. Like, it definitely sounds like a rhino drilling through the dirt.
Yep, for sure. But I think as far as just pure listening pleasure, Troy, I think you and I actually are on the same page here. I think we're going to have to give this one to Sting Chameleon.
I would agree.
All right, so round 1 of part 2. We're going with Sting Chameleon. And for anybody who has forgotten, last week when we played our 9 pairs of tracks, or 9 sets of tracks in some cases, we ended up with X1 taking it 6-3, and we will see where things go after today. But Troy, do you want to introduce our next pair of tracks here? This is actually the only one where I think there's any sort of lineup as far as like either the type of animal or like the theme of the Maverick.
Yeah, they're both pretty cool.
Yeah, I see what you did there.
So icy, yeah.
Icy, which oh, so many ice puns. That's great.
So yeah, up next we have Chill Penguin and Blizzard Buffalo.
Right, and Chill Penguin was actually composed by Yuki Iwai, who was also one of the main composers for Mega Man X2. Did the soundtrack to Goof Troop on the SNES, which is a really nice soundtrack.
Yep.
Gargoyle's Quest 2, composer for that. And yeah, we talked about she did Mega Man X vs. Street Fighter 3, Marvel Superheroes vs. Street Fighter, so she worked early on like the Marvel vs. Capcom series before it was Marvel vs. Capcom. And yeah, so she did Chill Penguin, once again Blizzard Buffalo by Kinuyo Yamashita. Alright, once again, that was Chill Penguin and Blizzard Buffalo. And, you know, I don't know if we have a more diverse pairing on tonight's docket. I kind of ended up having to put Blizzard Buffalo where he went, because this was the last one I was able to assign when I did my thing. But yeah,
you do the thing.
Two very different tracks here. Shukapow, what did you think about these?
Pretty cool.
Did you remember the Chill Penguin music? Had you heard this before?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. And of course, I know you'd never heard the Blizzard Buffalo track before, right?
Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, Troy, what are your thoughts on these two songs?
Okay, so after you said that, what was her name? Yuki Iwai
Yes.
did Chill Penguin's theme. Now that I've had a chance to listen to it, like, it's funny how different information can change your perspective on, like, how you listen to a song.
Yeah.
Because, like, with the knowledge that the person who did this song was also the person that did X2, I can hear a lot of both the triumphs and the problems I have with the X2 soundtrack in this song. And not to get too much into that one, because to be honest, this is a fantastic song. You know, like the only thing that I can really say that I don't prefer about it, and just like the X2 soundtrack, I don't feel like the composer understands drums very well.
Okay, yeah.
Like, I find the snare hits are kind of inconsistent on where they are, and, like, that's my biggest problem with the X2 soundtrack is because of that lack of, you know, a constant snare, it doesn't have the drive. I mean, this is a song that doesn't need the drive. It's such a good song.
It really is. I feel like it's sort of a second-tier track for a lot of people. There are people that like to point it out as kind of an unsung hero of the soundtrack, but there are so many of those people that it sort of undercuts that status.
Yeah.
So Chill Penguin is definitely a loved track. It's not in the same level for a lot of people as Storm Eagle and Spark Mandrill, but it's definitely well known. For me, I think that one of the things that I don't like so much about this and the whole X2 soundtrack, I don't love the sound of the guitar. The keyboard instrument, which is what I think is playing that sort of opening arpeggio, I like it a lot. But the guitar sound, there's something a little bit off about it to me. And my ear is not super great at determining, when we're talking about like semitones, not great at determining like sharp and flat, but it sounds a little bit off. One of my listeners and friends, actually, Utopia Nemo, is not a huge fan of Super NES Capcom guitar in general. He and I do totally disagree about that, but I think in this track specifically, I do hear some of that. Still, the composition is phenomenal, and I really like this track a lot. What did you think about Blizzard Buffalo?
So, okay, this is my nostalgia pick for the episode. This song, man, like, it does something, it takes me somewhere. I remember renting this game for the first time and playing this stage, and when the stage opened with that music, and there's this beautiful crescent moon in the background, and it all looks so beautiful. For me, it's a song that's, whenever I listen to it, I get overwhelmed by it.
That's really cool to hear, and I'm glad I'm able to bring you some of that. I love songs like that just affect you that way. So I did not have that nostalgia coming into this song. And when I first heard it, to be honest, I think it was the most underwhelming track from the X3 playlist. But the more that I have listened to it in preparing for this episode, the more that this track, divorced from any context, has really grown on me. And I think after just having finished 2 episodes about winter themes, this sounds, I mean, this is just a very cold sounding track. It definitely evokes that feeling of a blizzard, because it's not just a coldness, there's a darkness here that I think is beautiful. And coming from somebody like Kinuyo Yamashita, who cut her teeth on Castlevania, that's not surprising. And some of the darkness that we hear in the X3 soundtrack, I think, is a testament to that. So it's really cool to hear you talk about this. I'm going to have to come down on the side of Blizzard Buffalo for this track. The evolution of the theme is just really, really cool. And the way that it builds at the end with that beautifully, that minor ascending pattern going back into the loop is just really, really effective. This is a great, great track. So my vote is for X3.
So this was probably upset of the night then.
Are you going to be the same here?
Yeah, I definitely picked Blizzard Buffalo.
How about you, Shukapa? What would your vote have been?
It's really kind of difficult, but I think Blizzard Buffalo.
Yeah, I can hear that. Like I said, these are 2 very different tracks, but I think that Troy said it best. Blizzard Buffalo takes me some places. So, round 2 goes to X3. So right now we are at 1-1. And Shukapao, why don't you tell us which Mavericks we're going to be playing next?
Next up, we have Launch Octopus and Blast Hornet. Launch Octopus.
So we have an 8-legged thing going up against a 6-legged thing. Yeah, Launch Octopus and Blast Hornets. Okay, so that was Launch Octopus and Blast Hornet. I do have to give a little bit of airtime while we were listening. Shukapow lost, a crocodile?
A Crocorock.
Crocorock, okay.
Didn't even have the chance to become a crocodile.
Yeah, so Shukapow lost one of his beloved Pokemon, and we had to listen to Launch Octopus a little bit longer because you had a little bit of trouble focusing. But we've got it now, got it in our heads. Troy, why don't you lead us out?
It's okay, we've all had a Pokemon meltdown at one point or another, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
It punched itself in the face 3 times.
And so that's why you were shouting that it deserved death. Although my Pokemon meltdown had to do with lining up the perfect shot in Pokemon Snap and then something, messing with the picture. But yeah, so we're getting into the sort of middle area of our 8 Maverick pairs now. And I've got some stuff to say here about the order of everything, the pairings, and then the songs themselves. But Troy, why don't you lead us into this discussion?
So, Launch Octopus. I don't want to sound like I'm promoting myself too much here, but I did my own covers of the entire Mega Man X soundtrack earlier this year. And I had forgotten how many orc hits were in Launch Octopus. That's probably why I put it down at number 6. Because honestly, that's such a great composition. There's so many different pieces and parts to it that, it's a song that almost feels like a Mega Man stage. A Blast Hornet, I feel like it needs something else, at the end. Because it feels like it's building to something really big, and then it just loops again. So for me, it just kind of... The composition of Blast Hornet is great. I love the song. I wish there was more.
I could not agree more. I am 100% with you on Blast Hornet. Everything. I think that what is here is some of the best of the entire soundtrack. It is missing something. But yeah, I love what is here so much. This is actually the song I was mentioning before that I think has some of the best composition in it, but that overall I'm a little bit disappointed by it because of what you said. I'm not a big fan of Launch Octopus. I think if I were making my tier list the way that you did, I probably would have flipped Sting Chameleon and Launch Octopus. I might even have put Sting Chameleon a little bit higher, possibly even above our next pick as well, and even one of your tier 1 picks, but that's a totally different thing that's completely subjective. And it might be the orc hits in Launch Octopus that are doing that for me and distracting me so much, which is weird because I'm the one who really likes orc hits. When I was listening to it for the second time in a row, as you were talking about it, I did hear a lot of the different, some of the compositional complexity there. Still, for me, I would probably put it below Sting Chameleon on my personal list, but I did enjoy hearing your take on it, and you did mention it. Promote yourself as much as you want, man. I mean, you're my theme song guy, so obviously I like your work, and I do encourage everybody to go back and listen to the Mega Man X1 Thrash remixes that Skeletroy did earlier this year. I'll have a link to the playlist in the show notes because it's really, really great stuff. And I do want to come back to that when we're done with the Maverick themes. I want to talk a little about which one you think was your favorite, not necessarily just your favorite theme, but your favorite one to reorchestrate in that style. And I think that might be a cool way to kind of end things up. But Shukapow, what do you have to say about these themes?
Not much. Neither of them really stuck with me, I guess.
What do you think that is? Because melody tends to stick with you a lot, right?
Yeah.
So I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I'm not getting a whole lot of melody from either of these songs. There's a lot of sort of rock ambiance to them, and again with Launch Octopus, I think I might just be distracted by some of the instrumentation. But okay, so yeah, all of that said, I guess it's time to cast our votes. Troy, I think based on your descriptions here, I know which one you're going to go with.
I think I need to go with Launch Octopus.
All right, and I think because of my love for what is actually there, despite the fact that it feels a little bit unfinished, I'm actually going to land on the side of Blast Hornet this time. So Shukapow, that means you have to give us our tiebreaker vote. You need to listen to a little bit of the tracks again to make your decision?
No, I'm going to go with Launch Octopus.
Yeah.
Well, okay then. So, round 3 goes to Launch Octopus, giving Mega Man X1 2 votes to 1. And you know, I almost flipped Tunnel Rhino and Blast Hornet. I feel like Blast Hornet and Sting Chameleon have a little bit more thematically in common. I also feel like Tunnel Rhino has a little bit more, I think, musically in common with Launch Octopus. But then in the end, I don't know what maybe it is the fact that Launch Octopus is possibly my least favorite Maverick theme in X1, and that Blast Hornet did disappoint me so much when I listened to it. Maybe that's why I put them together like that. But again, can't stress enough that none of these songs are bad. I like them all. I just like some better than others. I do kind of also like, you've got Launch with the Octopus, you've got Blast, and so there is a little bit of thematic correlation there.
Oh yeah, that works out.
Yeah. And next we're getting into what may be the strangest robot master or Mavericks on either list. What do you think, Troy?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Boomer Kuwanger definitely has the oddest, like, body shape of any of the Mavericks.
Yeah, and the oddest name, like a Kuwanger is I guess it's a type of stag beetle or something, and the name is supposed to be a play on Boomerang, which is his weapon, but otherwise it's just weird. And then Neon Tiger, like, tigers are pretty threatening. Neon, I don't know, maybe not so much. But yeah, Boomer Kuwanger's body type is weird. Neon Tiger looks really cool.
Well, it's hard not to look cool when you got Wolverine claws.
Yep. Kind of a callback to Sigma and X2 and his Wolverine boss form.
Yeah.
But I do like Boomer Kuwanger's theme quite a bit. Let's see how Neon Tiger stacks up against it here. Okay, and that was Boomer Kuwanger and Neon Tiger. Once again, pretty diverse pair of songs here. Got some different feels going on, but I also think both of these are kind of outliers on their soundtracks. Neon Tiger is different from a lot of the other stuff, although in some ways it's kind of like Tunnel Rhino but cooler. Boomer Kuwanger definitely is a standout track, though. A lot of that may be my memory of the stage, which is a very vertical stage compared to the other X stages. Boomer Kuwanger was actually composed by Yuko Takehara, was also one of the composers, did some work on the Punisher on the SNES. Her first game was actually Mega Man 6, And I do think I hear some of this in some of those Mega Man 6 compositions. There's a lot of good stuff on that soundtrack.
Yeah, 6 is one of the better ones.
4, 5, and 6 didn't get as much listening time with me as the earlier ones did, but when I went back and listened pretty recently at the behest of one of my podcaster friends, I really got a lot. Hey, I'm talking this time, so now you can stop with the whistling. You're a good whistler, but it is a little bit distracting for the listeners, I have been told a couple of times. But yeah, so she also, Yuko Takehara also composed on Marvel Superheroes vs. Street Fighter and Marvel vs. Capcom. So yeah, we've definitely talked a little about her on the show. But yeah, well, you know what? We'll start with you, Shukapal. What did you think of these tracks? You said that you recognized the Boomer Kuwanger song from something, you think.
Oh yeah, it's in the Mega Man X medley in Smash Flash 2.
You were whistling along to both of these, so apparently they did kind of catch you more than the last pair of songs did. Mm-hmm. Anything specific you've got to say about them?
Not really.
It's alright, it's alright. Troy, what have you got for us on these two songs?
Okay, so I'm gonna start with Neon Tiger this time. It's just a really cool, like, head bobbing kind of song. And I really like I always just think of, songs in context of, like, normal pop music structure. So I like in the chorus of Neon Tiger where the guitar parts are just doing, like, the full chords, like the down, 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 down. The bass line in that is really cool. It's doing this, like, counterpoint. Really cool. To be honest, though, I gotta give it to Boomer Kuwanger. It's such a good song. At this point in the Mega Man X soundtrack, like, to me, everything is... I realize I put this in tier 2, but again, that's probably the orc hits. But, like, the composition of this song is just so good. From that opening synth doing the little arpeggiations, and then the bass kicks in with that, like just thud. And then, like, the whole song just kind of explodes, and again, like with Launch Octopus, it feels like the song is a state. Like, you can feel yourself going up the tower just listening to the song. So my vote goes to Boomer Kuwanger.
I'm really torn on this one. Neon Tiger grows on me. Like, it's something I could listen to Neon Tiger, I think, for longer than I could listen to Boomer Kuwanger on loop and not get tired of it because of the way that it's composed. That said,
maybe that should be a Patreon goal.
If I get enough patrons, I'll listen to Neon Tiger for like 10 hours on loop. I like that. Hey, whatever gets me a little bit more Patreon money, right? It'll be the Neon Tiger challenge. But you make a really, really strong case for Boomer Kuwanger, which was one of my favorite themes even coming into today. And I mentioned the Orc hits being distracting on Launch Octopus. I think after listening to them back to back, the reason that I feel the opposite about Boomer Kuwanger is that to me the Orc hits in the Boomer Kuwanger track are perfectly placed. They're put in a place where they're not going to be distracting, but instead they're going to emphasize the intensity of the part where they're included. They're a very thoughtfully executed part of the composition as a whole, and they don't distract from the composition. And Setsuo Yamamoto, the main composer for X1, was the composer for Launch Octopus. The man obviously knows what he's doing, so that's kind of an outlier for me. I don't know, it's two very different types of tracks. It's hard for me to compare, kind of like Chill Penguin and Blizzard Buffalo were. I think I'm going to have to side with you on this one. I'm going to have to give this one to Boomer Kuwanger. What do you think, Shukapal?
Yeah, same.
Okay, so we are all in agreement. As cool as Neon Tiger is, we now have 3 votes for Mega Man X, and still just the 1 for Mega Man X3. Not incredibly surprising, considering the pedigree we've got going here, but you know what? We've still got 4 Maverick tracks and then an ending theme to listen to, so let's see where this goes. So we're getting into Tier 1 territory now. And Troy, what is your first Tier 1 Maverick from Mega Man X?
Next, we're going to be listening to Flame Mammoth, and looks like you paired it with Toxic Seahorse.
I did, and it's actually been a minute since I listened to Toxic Seahorse. Toxic Seahorse, Crush Crawfish, and Volt Catfish. I have given myself a little distance, but they were three, obviously since we haven't played them yet, they're three of the tracks that I thought that they impressed me the most. So I'll be interested to hear how they hold up after coming back to them from a little while. Because I know these last four tracks from X1, I like all of them quite a bit. So Flame Mammoth is a classic. So let's get into these and see how they do. All right, that was Flame Mammoth and Toxic Seahorse. Flame Mammoth was composed by main Mega Man X composer Setsuo Yamamoto. Man, we got a couple of bangers on our hands here, Troy.
Well, yeah, this is tonally, I would say, the closest matchup that we've had so far. Honestly, both these songs could have been written by the same person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, they weren't, but the very similar in tone, style, tempo. This is a hard choice.
Well, to put that off just a little bit, you mentioned that we've got maybe some music in the works. I don't want you to spoil too much, but are you thinking of, are you going to be doing thrash remixes of the X3 tracks, or are you thinking you're going to be doing some medleys to kind of go along with our pairings here?
Bit of column A, a bit of column B.
Okay. I could definitely see a medley of these two songs, because like you said, we've got some very similar tones going on here, and I'll be interested to see how easy or how difficult that is. Like you were talking about last week, sometimes the things that sound like they're going to be the easiest are just not as much.
But yeah, after listening to these two back to back, I think I'm going to have to give it a shot.
Well, for me, the star of the show on both of these tracks is that lead guitar. This is some good stuff. This is SNES rock guitar done right, in my opinion.
Definitely, yep.
But it also it goes really well with the drums on both tracks, and definitely some memorable melodies here. There's a remixer cover artist on YouTube who goes by Stone McNuckle. Ever heard of him?
The name sounds familiar, but I couldn't tell you what kind of music they make.
It's really hard, like metal level stuff, and he's got a Flame Mammoth track, a Sparkman track, and a Spark Mandrill track. And listening to that a couple of years ago really sort of reintroduced me to Flame Mammoth, and because to me Flame Mammoth is not as flashy as like Storm Eagle and Spark Mandrill, but it's got a consistency to it and just this driving, rocking beat. I would say that Toxic Seahorse is a flashy song. I think it's got a little bit more of the guitar has a little bit more of a flair to it, whereas with Flame Mammoth, it's just like driving all the way through. It's like constantly propelling you through the stage. Both really, really fantastic themes. Shukapal, you mentioned that both of these are really cool while we were listening.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have anything to add?
It's really hard to decide.
Well, let's see if you have to. I'm going to go ahead and cast my vote first this time. I think I'm going to have to go with Toxic Seahorse. That lead guitar is just too impressive for me. I can't get over it. It's really busy and it does a lot of stuff, but it never gets to the point where it overwhelms the rest of the track. And everything going on underneath it is so solid and so steady. This is the most impressive track of the night for me so far, out of everything we've listened to. So I got to give it to Toxic Seahorse.
You know, I'm probably gonna have to agree with you. Like, I love Flame Mammoth. I think you hit the nail on the head when you said that, just how driving it is. Like, it's almost like a fast version of Tunnel Rhino, except that, the thing that I love about Flame Mammoth's theme is, how, throughout the verse section, the harmonies keep building. And then when it gets to the chorus section, it's basically like all those different harmonies explode into like arpeggiations and whatnot.
Oh yeah, that's really cool.
Really cool theme, but like compositionally, I feel like Toxic Seahorse has a lot more to offer. You know, it takes you in different places, and if you haven't noticed, that's something that I really like. So I'm gonna have to go with Toxic Seahorse as well.
Yeah, when tracks that really go a lot of places can also come back and do a really effective loop, that's really meaningful for me. And Toxic Seahorse, I think it's got that really well. I like sort of what I guess would be the bridge part of Toxic Seahorse, where it's like do 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 do. There's a little bit of a darkness to that's really, really cool. And then it gets into those shredding guitar arpeggios. So yep, I'm gonna fall on Toxic Seahorse as well. Shukapal, what would yours have been?
Probably Toxic Seahorse.
Okay. Once again, we are in agreement, and now we're going to go into round 6, which, if anybody has been listening to the show, they may think is a foregone conclusion. But I think that these last X3 tracks are the best on the soundtrack. So we'll just have to see. We'll have to see if they can stand up to some of these really just classic icons of VGM. Because, Troy, what have we got coming up next?
Torches and pitchforks, because I didn't put it at number 1.
That's alright. I forgive you, so everybody else can too.
I mean, again, when you have to put stuff in order, it all has to go somewhere. And when you weigh all the pros and cons, I put Storm Eagle at number 3.
Alright.
And it's going up against Crush Crawfish,
which is really, really fantastic in its own rights. I was impressed that you were able to put these together in a medley that you've shown me the beta version of, because they are slightly different. They're not as tonally similar as Flame Mammoth and Toxic Seahorse. Yeah, we'll have to see if a lowly crawfish can soar like Storm Eagle does, for sure. One thing Storm Eagle has is that it's kind of a short song. It's one of the shorter loops, but man, does it go places in that time frame. Crush Crawfish, I think, goes a little bit longer, but you know what? I've rambled enough. Let's get into it and see where we go. That was Storm Eagle and Crush Crawfish. Storm Eagle and our next track were both composed by Makoto Tomozawa. Makoto Tomozawa is done quite a few things here. Let me see. Looks like the main two, Mega Man Dr. Wily's Revenge.
Oh, nice.
For, what, was that the Game Boy?
Yep.
Yeah. Also did The Great Circus Mystery starring Mickey and Minnie Mouse on the SNES. Those SNES Mickey games had a lot of good stuff in them. Once again, as we mentioned, did some work on the PlayStation, Saturn, and PC versions of X3. We see Mega Man Legends. Okay, so this is where we go for our Tron Bond music, Shukapao. And Legends 2. Okay. And yeah, came back and did Strike Man for Mega Man 10. A lot of these Mega Man composers came back and did some stuff on Mega Man 10. That's a really cool soundtrack. Alright, Makoto Tomozawa, Storm Eagle, and then once again, Crush Crawfish, like everything else on X3 soundtrack, composed by Kinuyo Yamashita. Man, this is... I mean, okay, it's not personally tough for me. Everybody knows where I'm going to fall on this. And so I'm going to do most of my gushing on Crush Crawfish. I will say, just as a point of comparison, this really boils down for me the difference that people can have, or that the composers can have between guitar on the SNES. There's something a little bit darker about that lead guitar on Crush Crawfish than that soaring, squealing guitar on Storm Eagle. And maybe you could tell me a little about what that is and like what type of guitar, because I associate that with like different guitars my dad played when I was growing up, because he was a big time guitarist. And like I think of Storm Eagle sounds more like the guitars I equate with something like hair metal, whereas Crush Crawfish is a little bit grungier to me. There's something that both of these songs have in common as far as their structure goes, which I'm going to see if you can figure out why I decided to pair them because of that. But Crush Crawfish, I love the groove that it gets into, and unlike some of the other X3 themes where there's kind of a weird tag on at the end that doesn't really seem to make sense, I really like that sort of, that lonely little like chime at the very end of the loop on Crush Crawfish before it gets back into it. It's not as smooth as some of the other loop transitions, but it's just cool. I like it.
Yep.
It's just sort of a stinger. But yeah, Crush Crawfish is a really cool song. Makes me think of maybe of a little bit of Southern rock, possibly with the Crawfish connection. But yeah, so all that is what I have to say here. Troy, tell us about your thoughts about these tracks.
Just going off of what you've said, and I mean, I know we talked about how genres are stupid and don't matter last episode, but you are right, like, Mega Man X soundtrack is very much more of like an 80s hair metal kind of soundtrack, whereas X3 is a lot more like grungy. And I mean, I don't know, maybe the 2 years in you know, changing music habits in the 90s played a factor in that. Maybe it didn't. But, yeah, I mean, as far as that goes, like, you're definitely right in that, like, Crush Crawfish and the whole X3 soundtrack, like, it sounds a lot more dirty. Whereas, you know, like, X1 is a very polished sound.
You know, all 5 of the composers on X are classic Capcom composers. And Capcom has always had that really crisp, kind of throwback rock style. Whereas Kinuyo Yamashita got her start at Konami, which was always sort of traditionally, at least in my recollection, a little darker, a little grittier than some of their Capcom counterparts were. Sometimes that worked to great effect in series like Contra and Metal Gear, the Turtles games. But, you know, I couldn't really picture a Konami-style Mega Man soundtrack, except, you know, maybe X3. So...
I can picture the orchids.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, you were talking, I jumped in. You were talking about the grittier sort of sound, or the dirtier sound of X3.
Yeah, so, these songs are really similar, like they're cut from the same cloth. Because, like, for me, you know, trying to do a mashup of the two, like, the thing that was sort of like the tying bind was that, like, the eighth notes in each of them, where, like, Mega Man X has the do-do-do-do-do-do-do, and then X3 has the do-do-do-do-do-do-do. but like they work. And it's really cool how X with Storm Eagle, it has that descending line at the end, the do-do-do, do-do-do, whereas Crawfish has that ascending part that's even faster, so I'm not going to do it with my mouth.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's really neat to see those similarities in these songs.
Yeah, I really like the arpeggio, that last section of Crushed Crawfish.
And yeah, like this is such a tough choice.
But yeah, you're right. This is really a tough choice.
And even though it's a shorter loop, I think I'd have to give it to Storm Eagle for being a tighter composition. Like it's a perfect loop.
It really is. And I mean, if there was any doubt, yes, I'm also going with Storm Eagle. Shukapow, are you still? Yep. Yeah, this is a personal favorite of both of ours. And so, actually kind of interesting that this one didn't make it on our best of. I guess I'd forgotten that we'd played it already. So the structural similarity here is that both of these songs have sort of an intro, a fairly extended intro compared to some of the other tracks on the list that is not repeated. It's not part of the main loop, but I like the intro in both of them. Both very, very nicely put together, but like you said, Storm Eagle really is the tighter of the two compositions and definitely a personal favorite of mine. And where you were afraid of the torches and pitchforks last time, that you didn't put Storm Eagle at number one, I think there are a lot of folks out there who probably wouldn't put Storm Eagle at number one because there's another song that the general consensus seems to be is the best song in Mega Man X. I, of course, personally disagree with that, and you actually do too because you put this song at number 2, where I would have as well. Now, your number 1, that would have been my Storm Eagle, and I'm not even sure if your number 1 would have been my number 3. In listening to it, and especially in listening to your remix of it, I came to a new appreciation of it, and I do like it a lot. It's a very solid song, and I'm looking forward to you explaining why you put it at number 1. But we're not quite there yet. Where we are is Spark Mandrill, and in another tonal similarity, kind of like Flame Mammoth and Toxic Seahorse, we're going to be matching that up against Gravity Beetle.
Aw, yeah.
Okay, and for round 7, we are coming up to Spark Mandrill and Gravity Beetle. Oh man, I think that we might have our equivalent of last week's Sigma Stage 1 and Doppler Stage 1 here. These are both really outstanding tracks.
Yeah, nobody said it was gonna be easy.
Yep, we knew what we were getting into, but man, these are both so good. Shukapow, why don't you start?
Do I have to choose?
You love Gravity Beetle, I know that.
Yeah.
Because you did... No. Did you play this on our end of year?
It was on my list.
Oh, no, I don't think you did, because you ended up with your 2 Mega Man tracks were Airman and Scorpio.
Yeah.
Okay, so this one didn't quite make our end of year, kind of like Storm Eagle, but man, Gravity Beetle, so good. And this is our first time playing Spark Mandrill on the show. I'm kind of surprised that it took almost a year for it to appear, because it is a great tune. But yeah, so that being the case then, Troy, take it away.
Oh, jeez. Okay, so yeah, these two are, again, really similar. Oh, man, honestly, even though the melody's not as good, I'm leaning toward Gravity Beetle because of the chord progression. The chords are really... I don't even know how to explain this one. Triumphant, maybe? It's just a really well-composed song, and I mean, not that Spark Mandrill's not, it made my number 2.
Right.
But, man, that Gravity Beetle song is so good.
So is that where you're gonna land?
I think so, yeah. I'm gonna go with Gravity Beetle.
Okay, well, we'll have to see how this goes down, because after listening to them back to back, well, the first thing I have to say is that I can't wait for the medley. These two just sound like they were made to go together. They've got almost the exact same tempo, if not exactly the same tempo. They sound like they're in similar keys. I think for me, I'm gonna have to go actually with Spark Mandrill. The drums just take it away for me. I feel like the track goes a few more places. I think the loop is a little bit longer, or maybe just a little bit more diverse. Again, I love Gravity Beetle. I wouldn't have put it up against Spark Mandrill if I didn't think it had a chance of holding its own. But for me personally, I think I'm just going to have to land with the big electric robot monkey. So, ape.
Oh, I can't argue with any of those points, so...
Shukapow, that means that we require your services again.
I expect a pay raise, Dumbledore.
All right.
They're just both so good.
Yep. The one time that you lead out with do I have to choose? It turns out the answer is yes.
Spark Mandrill. It has to be Spark Mandrill.
Really? I'm surprised.
I mean, to be honest, you could ask me this tomorrow and I might pick Spark Mandrill.
I really love Gravity Beetle, but
they're just too good.
They are. They're both so great, and honestly, I will be honest, there's a tiny part of me that was hoping you would go with Gravity Beetle because you picked it twice for the show this year. No, only once. But because I kind of wanted another point for X3. Right now, X3 has 2 points. Let me see, Blizzard Buffalo and Toxic Seahorse have each taken their round. Although, I would say that Neon Tiger and Gravity Beetle were really closely contested. Crawfish would have been more so if it weren't for Storm Eagle's brilliance. But yeah, so we had to give this one to Spark Mandrill, which, just like Storm Eagle, was composed by Makoto Tomozawa. And so now we're down to our last pair of Mavericks. And we're going to end the night end the round here with Setsuo Yamamoto, just where we started, Setsuo Yamamoto versus Kinuyo Yamashita. And Shukapow, what is our last pairing going to be?
Armored Armadillo and Bolt Catfish.
They don't even have armadillos in Ireland. Why are you talking like that?
I don't know.
All right, so yes, Troy's number 1, Armored Armadillo, versus the song that I thought went with it best, Volt Catfish. So for our last pair of Mavericks, we have got Armored Armadillo versus Volt Catfish. Gotta say, living in Texas, I'm pretty partial to armadillos, but, we've got some pretty big catfish down here too, so I don't know. I will say, Troy, you have given me a fresh new appreciation for Armored Armadillo. This is a brilliant composition. And I love that almost jazzy lead progression. That do. That's just really, really solid stuff. And I heard this song a lot because this was the pivotal stage for unlocking the Hadouken power-up, as I'm sure you know.
Oh, yeah. Jumped into that pit more times than I can count.
Yep, distinctly remember the frame rate slowdown with all the bats.
Yep.
And, yeah, but man, when I finally jumped up on that cliff and I saw that light capsule, and then you see Dr. Light standing there in Ryu's gi, it's just all worth it. It's so good. And, man, the guitar part is just... The guitar, again, on both these songs is just really, really, really solid. Just like we had for Flame Mammoth and Toxic Seahorse. And again, also, Storm Eagle, Crush Crawfish, really the guitar on these top four has just been outstanding. Volt Catfish, I love the darkness on this one. Once again, this one also has that same sort of the I'm Dr. Doppler tonal Rhino. It starts out Volt Catfish, it's got the same sort of jingle to it. I really, really like this one. Again, I'm getting a little bit of a Southern rock vibe. The B section after the Volt Catfish intro, and then the part with the that guitar riff, the solo coming in, and then the drums and the rhythm guitar playing behind it, and then it gets into that final section with the harmonized guitars building up to that, then where it cascades down in sort of a minor descend back into the loop. And again, that minor progression at the end where it kind of goes down has a little bit of a Castlevania flavor to it. But just really, really, really great stuff, both of these songs. This one's going to be hard for me to choose, I think. Maybe not so much for you, since you did put Armored Armadillo at number 1. So tell us a little about that. What is it about this song that makes it your favorite?
A lot of things, to be honest. All right, let's just start with the beginning. So, yeah, that, like you mentioned, that sort of jazzy, melody there. I love how, in the beginning, it gets built on. I love the driving feel of the drums and the bass, and how everything else weaves itself on top of that. The guitar solo is, just no question. That's so good. And just everything about it, really. Like, it loops fantastically for being, like, as you mentioned, such a long clip. It just hits me in all the right spots.
One other thing, I'm listening to it again right now, and the brass on this track is really, really good. What those trumpets are doing and the horns is just... It's really, really nice. I don't know, this almost has kind of like a proto-ska feel to me, because it was before ska really got to be a big thing, but it's definitely got some of those same flavors, I think.
Yeah, I can hear that.
But yeah, I'm back up to the guitar solo you were talking about now, and yeah, you can't, it's hard to compete with that.
Because, we've heard a lot of, arpeggiated guitar parts, but I feel like this one has a lot more taste to it. And even just comparing it to the arpeggiated guitar part in Volt Catfish there. I don't know, sometimes those little breaks, like you can hear in Armored Armadillo where, it's going and then you'll just hear one note that's just a little bit longer, and it takes you out of that, the sort of loop that the arpeggios put you in. It's got a lot of feeling to it. It's got a lot of emotion, and it just makes me feel like Mega Man.
Yeah, it really, more than any other lead guitar part that we've heard so far, it does sound like a solo. And yeah, Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I do love at the end of the loop where it's got that riff on the opening theme that right after the solo it goes do 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 do, and then it loops, and it's just very, very well put together. Great composition. Yeah, I think I'm gonna have to give it to Armored Armadillo. And Shugapow, where are you gonna fall on this one?
Armored Armadillo.
Armored Armadillo. Archipelago.
So what's that put the score at?
So yeah, that puts the score at, right now, X1 is leading. It's 6-2. I mean, coming into it, I don't think this was ever going to be as much of a competition as Mega Man 2 versus Mega Man 3. Everybody knows how much I love Mega Man X. And we're not quite done yet, but I do hope that we've given people a new appreciation for some of these songs, and also an appreciation for Mega Man X3, because it really is a fantastic soundtrack. And, I mean, if we had gone with the PS1 version, who knows what might have happened. I would encourage people to check that version out. There are some songs that I do think benefit from it, although maybe not all of them.
Oh, definitely not all. I wouldn't even say most of them. But at the same time, like, it's really cool to be able to hear songs in, different interpretations. Like the PS1 Red Book audio or whatever, it's very different from the Super Nintendo, sample sound.
Yes. Yeah.
So yeah, like you may like it more, you may like it less, but to me it's cool that it's just different.
I think that both of these soundtracks they have a lot of really fantastic examples of composers who knew how to make the most of the hardware they were working with. Both of these are just really fantastic examples of implementation and the types of samples and instruments that are being used. And this has just been, it's been a great time. And before we wrap things up, why don't we go ahead and play our last pair of songs to kind of cool down after a lot of these rockin' tunes. We're going to be listening to the credits music for both Mega Man X and Mega Man X3. So, coming down from all of our Maverick fights, now we get to see the credits roll on Mega Man X, Mega Man X3, this 2-part special, and Season 2 of the podcast. Man, both of these were fun. I think I know where I'm going to end up going with my vote on this last one, but this has been a lot of fun. Shukapel, you have anything to say about those last couple of tracks?
Not really. They were just pretty cool.
Pretty cool?
Pretty cool.
Pretty nice?
Pretty cool.
Pretty neat?
Very good.
Okay, very good music. Troy, what about you? Again, we have kind of a dichotomy of style here.
Yeah, this is honestly really tough to pick, just because they're so different. I really like that X3 one, just because it's sort of like a straightforward kind of, pop rock kind of tune. Whereas the X one kind of reminds me of like a smoky jazz nightclub or something.
Yeah.
They're both really good, though.
Yeah, X1's has that sort of jazzy bounce that I mentioned Soyo Oka when we were listening. I could definitely hear something like this in one of her soundtracks. And it's a lot of fun, but I think if I'm thinking about these as themes that I would hear at the end of a game, I think for me I'm going to have to land on X3. There's just something really pure about it. It's very nicely put together, and I can't think of a better way to round out the show, except for maybe the X1 casting theme, which is actually going to be our playout track.
So yeah, I think I'd probably have to agree with you. The only thing that I'd knock X3's staff roll for, it doesn't loop well at all.
Yeah, it actually has an end, and then it starts again, which is not really what you want for a staff roll unless it's timed perfectly.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you are right about that. But despite that, you think you're going to land on X3?
Oh, for sure. I love the the twin guitar kind of sound that it's got to it. Sort of like a Thin Lizzy kind of vibe.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just good, straightforward kind of rock tune. I love it.
And what about you, Shukapel? You don't have to pick on this one, but if you did, where would you land? It's hard, because they are really different. And they're both fun. They're both good tracks, but...
I guess the X3 theme.
Alright, so that means for both Part 1 and Part 2, we are going to end up with a score of 6-3 in favor of Mega Man X1. But yeah, X1 is done twice as well as X3. But you know what? I think when you put any soundtrack up next to a classic like Mega Man X1, if it does that well, it's done pretty well. Yeah, before we wrap up and kind of get into where everybody can find us and all that good stuff, yeah, I had asked you earlier in the show which of the tracks from X you had the most fun rearranging for your Smash Remix channel, or Thrash Remix channel.
It was kind of a surprise to me, just, how doing, a different arrangement of a song can really change your perspective on it. Because Boomer Kuwanger went from, honestly, one of my least favorites to, I put it mid-tier, but, that song is so good. And it seems like the people who listen to me on YouTube would agree. Out of the whole Mega Man X album I did, that's the one that has the most views. Cool.
Very cool. What do you think is it about the Boomer Kuwanger composition that made it so much fun?
Well, to be honest, it's really just such an interesting composition. It's got a lot of stuff going on in both the left and the right ear. It's got a really strong melody and harmony. The little synth arpeggiation in the back. It just all builds to become something awesome. But, to be honest, I didn't think that it would be the most popular one. We were talking about this a long time ago, but, I kind of assumed that my top 3 would also be, everybody's top 3. Spark Mandrill, doing pretty well. Armored Armadillo, not so much.
That is interesting.
But I mean, that's the thing, like, that everybody's got their own taste, and it's really cool to see how your thought of how everybody thinks differs from how they think.
Yeah, for sure. I know that I have seen a lot of that, just in podcasting and stuff that I thought would be just over the top popular. People thought, yeah, that's pretty okay. Yeah, so like I before coming into this episode, I probably would have Launch Octopus would have been near the bottom for me. I think that I would have flipped Launch Octopus and Sting Chameleon, and I think I would have put Armored Armadillo down either right below or right above Boomer Kuwanger. Otherwise, I think that the order would have stayed about the same. Now, kind of like I said, I have a new appreciation for Armored Armadillo, and so I'm not nearly as sure that would be the case anymore.
Well, I've done my job then.
Yep. Definitely an effective argument there. But man, this has been a really fantastic time. I think altogether we're going to clock in at just about 4.5 hours between these two episodes of recording time. May not come out to quite that long after editing, but it'll be really fun to hear when it launches in February. And can't think of a better way to have closed out the evening. But yeah, and to close out a season rather.
I can't think of a better way to close out an awful year than by doing an awesome podcast.
I hear that, man.
Very good music.
Yes. And let's hope that this will be a portent of things to come in 2021, We're putting this out into the ether for 2021. Maybe the whole year will be kind of an uptick from where it has been. Troy, thank you so much for joining us on this finale two-parter.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I had a blast.
We will definitely have to do this again sometime. So Skeletroy is one of our patrons, and as always, his links to his work will be in the show notes. And again, I am specifically going to link to the Mega Man X thrash remix album that he did. Very, very good stuff. And be on the lookout. Look at his page and be listening, because if you liked what you heard here, he's going to have more stuff for you. And, I don't know if we're going to have you back next season. I guess it kind of depends on what we end up going with. I do think that eventually on this show, I am going to do a showcase of my favorite NES composer, Naoki Kodaka, whose work is some of the first stuff that you and I bonded over.
Yep.
And we've definitely got you down for that at some point in 2021. That's going to be a lot of fun.
Well, yeah, I think it started when you heard some of my Journey to Silius remixes.
Yes.
And, it just kind of went from there. I told you about Freedom Force, which is such a great soundtrack. Definitely the most metal soundtrack on the NES.
Well, and Naoki Kodaka definitely knows his way around that. So, yeah, as we approach the end of the season, by now, patrons will have had some time to vote on some of the things that we'll be doing next season. As of time of recording, Shukapow and I have still not even narrowed down the stuff that we definitely want to talk about, and so we don't know what it is that y'all would have voted for. I do know we're definitely going to be coming back to our Rivals, Rogues, and Frenemies topic for a part 2. That's one thing I know for sure we're going to be doing next season. As far as anything else, honestly, we'll just have to see where it lands. I may have some patron picks to fill out. As always, you can find us on Patreon at patreon.com/VGMBGM, and you can join to make your voice heard, make some recommendations for different episodes that are coming up, get exclusive access to schedules that will show some of the episodes that are coming, and polls where you can vote for other episodes you would like us to do. And you can find us and talk to us on YouTube, by email at verygoodmusicvgm@gmail.com. You can find Shukapow's compositions on flat.io. Just look for Lloyd Irving for Smash, because I'm pretty sure that even by February, Lloyd will not be in Smash, although if the universe wants to prove me wrong, Shukapow won't be upset. I think that's it for us, Shukapow. Can you think of anything else as far as our stuff goes?
Not really. I mean, I'm on Twitter at Shukapow.
Oh, yeah?
Chatting right now with The Last Rican.
give him a holler. And Shoot Kapow also, thanks to the last weekend and the nice folks at the East Coast Pokemon League, Shoot Kapow now has his own online Switch account. So if you would like to be our friend on Switch, I'm going to have both of our Switch codes up on YouTube in the About section. So check us out there and maybe join us for a round of Mario Kart or Smash. Troy.
I think I might.
Where can our listeners find you? Besides at the beginning and end of every one of our episodes.
So most of my stuff is up on YouTube, and I've been on YouTube long enough that you can just go youtube.com/Skeletroy. That'll work.
Nice.
Because I don't know what the letter and number combination is. I'm also on Patreon. I've got a whole bunch of exclusive mixes on there. There's about half as many songs on my Patreon as there are in Smash Ultimate. So,
Yep.
For $2, you can listen to a lot of music.
Yep.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'm also on Twitter, although I barely use it, but you can find me on there, Skeletroy. I sometimes post updates. Most of the time I don't. So yeah, just keep looking at the YouTube channel. I post songs every now and again. And yeah, hopefully you like them.
All right. Well, right about now, you'll be hearing the theme song that Skeletroy composed, starting up. Troy, once again, it's been great. Look forward to lots of future collaboration. This has been a blast. And yeah, I think that it's about time to sign off. So, we're going to take a little break until next season. We will be back on the first Tuesday in March for all of you. But until then, remember to play very good games,
Be very good people.
And keep listening to very good music.